Dawn breaks over the coast of southern Spain. The light is weak, gray, pushing back a long Atlantic night. You stand on a small, chilly beach near the town of Huelva in April 1943, the waves rolling in slow, heavy breaths. You are a fisherman or a local policeman. At first, you think it is just driftwood in the surf. Then the tide pushes it closer, a human shape, a man in a life jacket, face pale and swollen from the sea. Dragged by the current, he bumps gently against the rocks as if asking to be led ashore. You wade in. The water soaks your trousers. You grab the body by the shoulders and pull it onto the sand. He is wearing a Royal Navy uniform. An officer. Around his waist a belt. Around his wrist, chained tightly, a briefcase, waterlogged but still locked. In his pockets you find papers, identity documents. The name is clear. Major William Martin, Royal Marines. You do not know yet that Major William Martin never existed, that the dead man at your feet is someone else entirely, and that the briefcase chained to his wrist does not carry his secrets, but a set of lies carefully designed to move armies, shift entire divisions, and change where men will die. How do you turn a single corpse into a weapon that can sway Hitler's decisions? Who was the real man behind this invented officer? And how many soldiers walked off the beaches of Sicily alive because a dictator believed a dead man's lie? Early 1943, North Africa. The Axis forces in Tunisia are being squeezed from east and west. The desert campaign is entering its final phase. German and Italian units are short of fuel, short of supplies, and steadily losing ground. The Allied question is simple, but terrifying. What comes next? You stand in a map room in London, in Washington, in Algiers. The Mediterranean lies in front of you like a chessboard. To strike at Hitler's soft underbelly, the Allies need a foothold in southern Europe. Sicily is the obvious choice. It lies just off the toe of Italy, close enough to reach with existing shipping. Airfields on the island would open the door to bombing mainland Italy and threatening Germany's southern flank. The problem is that Sicily is obvious to the Germans too. If Hitler and his generals guess correctly, they can reinforce the island. More troops, more tanks, more aircraft. The approach beaches are narrow. The terrain favors the defender. With enough preparation, the landings could turn into a slaughter. So planners face a brutal dilemma. How do you attack the obvious target without letting it be obvious? The answer is as audacious as it is macabre. To save lives in Sicily, you must make the Germans look somewhere else. Greece, Sardinia, the Balkans. You must persuade them that Sicily is a diversion, not the main blow. You do not stake the fate of an invasion on a single body and a forged letter. Until 1943, no one had. Now, someone is going to try. The idea begins, as many strange ideas do, as a line in a memo. In British naval intelligence in 1939, a document circulates jokingly comparing deception to trout fishing. You throw out many baited ideas and see what the enemy bites. Somewhere in that trout memo is a suggestion, half whimsical, half serious, about using a corpse carrying false papers to mislead the enemy. By 1943, with the Mediterranean invasion looming, the idea surfaces again. This time, no one is laughing. You are in a small, smoke-filled office in London. Intelligence officers sit around a table, the air thick with pipe smoke and tension. The question, can a dead man be turned into a courier for lies? The leap sounds monstrous, but coldly logical. You take a body that appears to have died in an air crash or at sea. You dress him as an officer. You give him credible, secret papers about supposed invasion plans. You release him where the enemy is likely to find him, and trust that curiosity, bureaucracy, and greed for intelligence will do the rest. Immediately, a cascade of practical problems follows. Where do you find a suitable body? It must look like an airman who died suddenly. No obvious disease, no signs of long illness. How do you build a convincing backstory, an identity that can stand up to the scrutiny of Spanish doctors, German intelligence, inquisitive officials? How do you ensure that the papers look real enough to be believed, but not so perfectly placed that they scream trap? Most of all, how do you do this with a real human corpse and still sleep at night? Somewhere in London, a man dies. In reality, it is a young man who succumbs to poisoning, an accidental death, not a war casualty. He has no wife, no children. His family is small, distant, or not in a position to object. The exact identity was long hidden by the planners. Only decades later would historians connect a name to the body. In 1943, within the walls of British intelligence, he becomes something else. He becomes Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. Someone signs papers authorizing the use of his body. A doctor examines him, judging whether his condition will match the story they intend to tell. His death, once private, now becomes part of an elaborate script. He is no longer just a man. He is a component in an operation. Now you watch as a ghost is built. On a table in the Naval Intelligence Office lies a small pile of personal belongings. They are not yet real. They are props, but they must look like the clutter of a life. You give Major William Martin a birth date, a rank, a service number. You draft an identity card. You stamp it with real seals. You sign it with real signatures. You build his wallet. Inside, small banknotes, a used ticket stub, maybe a bill from a tailor for an unpaid suit alteration. You give him keys that go to no doors, but must jingle in his pocket just the same. And then you give him a heart. There is a photograph of a smiling young woman, an MI5 secretary, chosen as the face of a fiancé who does not exist. With the photo goes a love letter, intimate but not too polished, full of little details and domestic concerns. She calls him my darling Bill. She worries he doesn't eat enough. She teases him about his handwriting, about a night at the theater they will have after we win. There may be a stern letter from a father or a bank scolding him for overdrawing his account. Maybe a receipt for a new shirt, a club membership card. Things no spy would ever carry, but every real young officer does. All of this is deliberate. Real people are messy. They carry scraps of life, old receipts, half-finished letters, personal notes. Without such clutter, the Spanish officials who find the body and the German intelligence officers who study the documents will sense something off. The briefcase is next. Inside, in manila folders and official-looking stationery, are letters between high-level British officers. They discuss upcoming operations in the Mediterranean. They mention an invasion of Greece and Sardinia. They refer to Sicily carefully, almost dismissively, as a diversionary attack to draw German attention away from the main effort. One key letter, framed as a top-secret communication between generals, drops hints just clear enough that a German reader will come away thinking the Allies are going to Greece. Sicily is just a feint. The wording is painstakingly crafted, too vague, and the Germans glean nothing, too explicit, and it looks staged. The letter must feel like real officers speaking candidly between the lines in a way they would never do if they suspected anyone else would read it. They had one chance, too much clumsiness, and the Germans would laugh, too much perfection, and they would smell a trap. When the preparations are complete, Major William Martin is as real as paper and imagination can make him. He has an identity, a career, debts, a fiancé, a life waiting for him at home. All he needs now is a way to die where the enemy will find him. The submarine HMS Seraph cuts through the dark waters off the Spanish coast. You are on her deck in the early hours of April 30th, 1943. The sea is cold. The air smells of salt and diesel. The crew works in hushed voices because this is not an ordinary mission. Inside a sealed canister lies the body of Major William Martin packed in dry ice. Chained to his wrist is the briefcase. Spain is officially neutral, but many of its officers and officials lean toward Germany. German intelligence operates there with relative freedom. British planners have chosen this spot carefully. The currents here tend to carry floating objects toward the shore, near Huelva, a place where both Spanish and German agents are active. The captain gives the order. The canister is opened. The body is brought out, dressed in uniform. Life jacket in place, briefcase secured. You watch as sailors gently lower him into the black water. For a moment, he floats near the hull, pale in the light. Then the current catches him. He drifts away into the dark, carrying a story that has never happened. The submarine turns and slips beneath the surface, leaving the body alone with the waves. Back in London, the planners begin to wait. Will he be found? Will the briefcase be recovered and opened by the right people? Will the Spaniards pass the contents to the Germans? Will the Germans believe what they read? Or will the body sink unnoticed and the entire operation vanish without a trace? Dawn in Huelva. The fisherman on the beach drags the body from the surf. Spanish authorities are notified. The British consul hears the news and, as instructed, reacts with carefully measured alarm. You say an officer of ours has been found with a briefcase? That briefcase is classified property of His Majesty's government. It must be returned immediately. The more the British demand its return, the more valuable it seems. You are a Spanish official now, holding a locked case you're not supposed to open. But you know your colleagues in Madrid have a habit of sharing such finds with their German counterparts. The briefcase, or at least its contents, are quietly passed along. The Spanish claim they did their duty, opening as little as possible. In reality, the documents are photographed, copied, read. Then the original papers are returned to the British through diplomatic channels, conveniently late enough to make it plausible they were tampered with. In London, intelligence officers examine the returned documents under microscopes. They see tiny scratches, subtle signs that seals were lifted and replaced. It looks like the Germans have seen exactly what they were meant to see. Now the focus shifts to another chain. Spanish intermediaries to German intelligence, German analysts to Berlin, Berlin up the ladder to the one man whose belief matters more than anyone else's. You are now in a German intelligence office. A packet arrives from Madrid. Inside, photographs and summaries of documents carried by a British officer who died at sea. You sift through the letters. They match some things you already know. British units in North Africa, certain commanders, recognizable code words. They also contain new information, references to an invasion of Greece, hints that Sicily is secondary. Some of your colleagues are skeptical. Is this too good to be true? Could it be Allied disinformation? But the real weight is not in the documents themselves. It is in the brain reading them. Adolf Hitler is already inclined to believe that Greece and the Balkans are key to the Allied strategy. He fears an attack there that could threaten Romanian oil fields and his southern flank. The idea of an invasion through Greece fits his worldview. When these documents cross his desk, they confirm his fears. He chooses to believe. Troops are shifted, reserves earmarked, orders are given to reinforce Greece and Sardinia. Sicily, while not stripped bare, is not reinforced with the full weight it might have had. One dead man, one briefcase, one set of letters has nudged the mind of a dictator, and that mind commands divisions. When you see how much hung on one briefcase and one dead man, it changes how you think about war. If you want more of these hidden operations and moral gray zones, hit subscribe. It tells the algorithm these stories are worth bringing back from the archives. July 10th, 1943. Operation Husky begins. You stand on the deck of a landing craft, waves slamming against the bow. Ahead lies the coast of Sicily, dusty hills, fortified towns, beaches studded with obstacles. Allied forces, American, British, Canadian, are coming ashore along a broad front. Paratroopers have already dropped inland, though many have scattered in the wind. The sea is full of ships. The sky hums with aircraft. German and Italian defenders are present. There are coastal guns, machine gun nests, minefields. Men will die today. Many will die. But something is missing. The full weight of German armor and reserve divisions that could have concentrated here turned sections of these beaches into killing grounds and perhaps driven the invaders back into the sea. Instead, some of those precious mobile units are elsewhere, waiting in Greece, in Sardinia, guarding against an attack that never comes. You, slogging through surf and sand, have no idea that your odds have been quietly improved by a dead man who washed ashore in Spain months earlier. Historians still debate exactly how much Operation Mincemeat saved in lives. War is complex. Many factors shape the Sicilian campaign. Italian morale, German command disputes, terrain, Allied firepower. What is clear is that German deployments were influenced by the supposed plans discovered on Major William Martin. Some units were held back, others were not sent to Sicily in time. The defense was weaker and more scattered than it could have been. How many men walked off those beaches alive because Hitler believed a dead man's orders more than his own doubts? No one can give you a precise number. But you can look at the casualty list and imagine how much longer those lists might have been if more German divisions had been waiting. After the war, the story slowly emerged. For decades, the true identity of the man behind Major William Martin was obscured by official secrecy and deliberate cover stories. The British government offered one name, then evidence pointed to another. Even now, some details of his life remain blurred, but what we do know is this: he was a real person, with a past, and probably with loved ones. Some accounts describe how his family was eventually told that he had played a role in a great deception that helped win the war. For them, the knowledge may have been a strange comfort, a sense that his death, however accidental and sad, was given meaning. For others, the idea of using a human body, this way of turning a corpse into a prop, an instrument, a weapon, remains deeply unsettling. The British officers who designed the operation later wrote about it with a mix of pride and unease. They knew they had done something audacious, something that likely saved lives. They also knew they had crossed a line most people never contemplate, using a man's remains not for burial and remembrance, but for deceit. Over time, Operation Mincemeat became a legend. Books were written, films were made. The story was told as a brilliant caper, a clever trick that outfoxed the Nazis. But behind the shiver is a corpse. Behind the plot is a human being who never volunteered for this duty. Now it is your turn to answer the questions they did not have time to ask. If you were a commander facing the casualty lists of Sicily, would you have approved this plan? Would you have signed off on using a dead man's body as bait to move enemy divisions? Would you want your own body used this way if it could save thousands? If you knew in advance that your death could be turned into a deception that would spare others, would you consent? Did this operation cross a moral line, or is there no such line when the alternative is more dead on the beaches? How much of war do you think is won by tricks instead of bullets? Battles remembered for courage and sacrifice often rest on invisible foundations. A broken code, a forged telegram, a fake army on a map. Does knowing that change how you see the men who fought and the ones who deceived? When you think of Sicily now, will you remember only the soldiers in uniform, or also the man who never knew he would become Major William Martin? Tell us in the comments, do you see Operation Mincemeat as brilliant, disturbing, or both? Would you draw the same line the planners did, or somewhere else? If this story gave you a new way to look at wartime deception, hit like so more people can find it. Subscribe if you want more true stories where a single choice in an office changes what happens on a battlefield. And tell us where you are watching from, and most importantly, whether you would have said yes or no to Operation Mincemeat. Because in the end, this is not just a story about a corpse in the surf. It is a story about how far we are willing to go to save lives, and what it means when the price of victory is written on a tag tied to a dead man's wrist.